Okay, guys, welcome back. Or welcome for the first time, if this is your first campaign on the channel, in which case, welcome. Basically, it is time for another pair of campaigns to begin. And as you might have already noticed from the title of this video, this is a prologue episode. So there's not going to be any real gameplay, any battles or anything in this video. We're just going to be discussing like the factions, the mods, some of my own quirks that I use in the battles, things like that. So if you have no interest in hearing about any of that, the first two episodes for the campaigns will be out now. You can go ahead and skip to them. So just in brief, if you want to know which two campaigns they are, one of them is obviously, as you can see here, the Lord of the Rings Total War Remastered mod. And the other is going to be the Crusades campaign for Medieval 2, the Kingdoms expansion. We're going to play as the Wicked Men of the East in the Lord of the Rings mod, and we're going to play as the Principality of Antioch in the Crusades campaign. So again, if that's all you wanted to hear, off you go to those first episodes. For everyone else who wants to hear more, stick around. So, just to get some of the quirks out of the way, because there are some things that I do very differently from other people who play and other people who record Total War videos. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on why and what I'm doing. So first off, my campaigns are very heavily battle-focused. I do spend time on the campaign map, but basically just kind of explaining where we are, what we're doing, and what battles we're about to fight. And then we go through the battles. Once the battles are over, then I just kind of let you guys go until some turn in the future. It might just be the next turn. It might be, 5 turns. It might be 10 turns. But basically, I'll bring you guys back when it's time for some more battles. And we'll then just kind of go around the campaign map and explain, what's been going on, what's happened, I guess, apart from the battles, of course, what alliances have been formed, what factions have been destroyed, things like that. And then we get right into the battles and repeat until the end of the campaign. If you've seen any of my past campaigns, you know what this looks like. But for anyone new, I just want to explain, because you might look at this and go, what the heck is this? Like, I don't really see this sort of Let's Play before, and so I just want to make sure we're all on the same page as to what I'm doing. A couple of other things. I don't do auto-resolves. Honestly, if a battle is like just too small or just too insignificant or whatever to actually show you guys, then you simply won't see it. I might mention it if, I guess, I think it's necessary or something, but, like, to be honest, well, first off, I just enjoy even the small battles myself, so even if I don't record them and show them to you guys, I will almost certainly be fighting those without auto-resolving. Just because I enjoy even the small battles with, like, maybe a small force of mine versus a small force of, let's just say, random rebels who spawned in. And if the battle's interesting enough or, like, important in some way, like, maybe this little tiny rebel force is, like, sitting on a bridge that's blocking my main army from advancing, I would show you that battle. But maybe, like, a small battle between, let's say, like a 2-unit rebel group in one of my, back provinces fighting just, like, the garrison of one of my settlements that went out to kill them. You probably wouldn't see that battle. But anyway, just so that we're clear on that. Another thing I do is I do fight battles to the end. So once I get to, like, the victory screen, the one where it says, do you want to continue the battle or do you want to end it here? I just automatically hit continue every time. Like, even if I've killed enough of the enemy that their army will disappear and won't exist anymore on the campaign map, I still fight it to the end until, like, every enemy is either dead or off the battlefield. And I do that just because, again, I sort of enjoy that part of the battle too. It's like a sort of almost like victory lap. After having won, like, the main part of the battle, you have this sort of, like, victory lap where you just kill the enemies. I just feel it's part of the battle, and it's not something to be skipped. So you'll see that happen in many of the battles. Also, I don't use the center of the settlement to win any battles. So, as I'm sure you're probably aware, if you take the center of the settlement, and just wait for a few minutes, I think it is. I don't know if it's like 3 minutes or 4 minutes, however long it is. You can just kind of automatically win the battle at that point. Well, that's not going to happen in this campaign. I will either avoid using the center of the settlement, like going into it if like there's no one there, or I'll use it but just kind of pass through to get to like another part of the battlefield. So, yeah. Even if it looks like, hey, why didn't you just take the center of the settlement? You would have won the battle easily that way. I hate that sort of mechanic. That's the sort of mechanic that I wish would just have never existed in the Total War series. And unfortunately, I believe in later games it was actually expanded upon with like additional capture points and victory points and all sorts of other nonsense. But anyway, the point is that you will not see that happen in this campaign. And again, if you've seen any of my previous campaigns, this is all very familiar to you. This is how they've all gone. But for any newcomers, there's your explanation. Now, as I already mentioned at the beginning here, we will be playing as the Wicked Men of the East. Though I don't think I'll actually be referring to them as such. How do I explain this properly? Basically, if you look at my past campaigns, you'll notice I don't use like simplified versions of faction names. I use like maybe more official sounding terms for them. So like just as an example, in my Julii campaign, if you look at like the title of the playlist, it doesn't say Julii, it says the House of Julii. Or for my England campaign in Medieval 2, it doesn't just say English or England, it says the Kingdom of England, and so on and so forth. You get the picture. Now, the Wicked Men of the East, basically, they're the people of Rhun, the Easterlings, if you will. And so I wasn't sure exactly what to call them, like, in an official capacity, if you will. You know, the Kingdom of Rhun, or the Empire of Rhun, or whatever. And I tried looking up, like, I guess, like, their systems of government and, like, their people throughout the ages, and I guess my best interpretation is that they're kind of like a bunch of tribes that often fight amongst each other, but when united, like, under either one of their own leaders or, like, the Dark Lords, like Sauron, you know, they kind of can move as one people, but they're still at heart like different tribes. And so my thought was, well, instead of trying to call them like the Kingdom of Rhun or the Empire of Rhun or whatever, I would just call them the Confederation of Rhun. So basically like a confederation of different tribes, if you will. If anyone has like a better like idea to call them, or just has, I guess, knows what like their system of government like is for sure. Because again, this is just me like just kind of like looking through like different videos on YouTube and some of the books that I have, just trying to like piece together like what kind of like government and system of well, what kind of like a country that might be if united like under one banner. And I couldn't find like a definitive answer. So if you have an idea, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll, you know, see if I can change, you know, like the playlist names and things around to call them something else. But for now, I'll be mostly referring to them as the Confederation of Rhun. However, the mod calls them the Wicked Men of the East, just so that we're all clear on that. All right, and as I already mentioned, we'll be playing a second campaign simultaneous with the first one. And basically, the way that works, and I guess this is only really the second time I've done it, but basically we'll have the Lord of the Rings campaign come out on Monday. There'll be a battles episode that comes out on Wednesday, which is basically just where I take past battles from past campaigns and just kind of put them on their own video instead of having them part of a larger video. And then on Friday will be this campaign here in the Crusades, or in the Kingdom's expansion, but the Crusades campaign. I already mentioned we'll be playing as the Principality of Antioch, and conveniently, that faction already has a very official sounding name, so we're just going to continue to call them the Principality of Antioch. Now, if you're wondering why them as opposed to, say, the Kingdom of Jerusalem, because I have actually seen a few videos where people, oh, what's the word for it, I guess? I don't want to say they look down on the Principality of Antioch, but they basically kind of go, well, isn't it just the Kingdom of Jerusalem, but again, like it's like just a kind of a copy of them? Like, is there even really a need for like another separate faction like that? And my only answer to that is, well, I mean, just look at their units. You should see them on your screen right now, basically fighting some Turks. But basically, the Principality of Antioch is way cooler than the Kingdom of Jerusalem. I mean, just look at them. You know, black, or mostly black, with like white, like crosses and just other iconography, as opposed to like the white and gold scheme of Jerusalem. Obviously, the Principality of Antioch is way better. Way, way better. And I don't know why anyone would consider playing the Kingdom of Jerusalem. Now, I'm only half kidding there. I mean, I do actually prefer the black and white color scheme than the white and gold, but obviously you pick whichever you prefer. And they are kind of, the two factions are kind of a copy of each other. Nevertheless, I am going to pick the Principality of Antioch, and not just for their superior color scheme, but so when it comes to some of these vanilla campaigns, because obviously we are playing a mostly vanilla campaign for the Crusades and a modded overhaul for the Lord of the Rings Remastered campaign, but basically I've only ever played the Kingdom's campaigns once. So the Britannia, yeah, I think it's Britannia, Crusades, the Teutonics, and what was the last one? The Americas campaign. All four of them, I've only ever played each of them once when I was a kid, because basically I would just keep going back to Medieval 2, the Grand Campaign, or I would go and play some more Rome 1 or something like that. And so I only ever played any of these campaigns once, and so now, that was years ago when I was a kid, so now I'm going to basically play them all again as an adult and play as the same faction as I did when I was a kid. And so I played as the Principality of Antioch when I was a kid in this campaign, and so I'm gonna do it again, years and years and years later. Just to, I guess, what do I think of these campaigns now as an adult, and also having kind of minimal experience with them? I mean, because obviously they're medieval too, so it's not going to be radically different in many ways, but it will be different, like with certain features and things, just things that are different from the Grand Campaign. So it should be a very interesting experience, basically relive such an old campaign in my mind anyways. I mean, many of you may have played it a little more recently than I have, but this is a very old campaign for me. Alright, so now just a brief discussion on mods. Obviously, with the Lord of the Rings campaign, we are going to be playing, well, that is itself a mod for Rome Remastered. So that's the main mod, but we are also using, I guess it's not really a mod, but we are also using Reshade. Just to add a bit of sharpness to the textures. I mean, to be honest, I kind of hemmed and hawed on whether it's even really necessary, but it does look ever so slightly better with that little bit of extra sharpness. So, you know what, we're just going to stick with it for now. We can always remove it later. And actually, that's it for the mods for Rome Remastered. That one was actually quite simple. Now, for Crusades, I want these campaigns to be mostly vanilla. In fact, almost entirely vanilla. But I do think that there are some changes that can be made, like mostly like patches, bug fixes, things like that. So basically, if you look in the description of this video, you should see, well, actually, you should see the mods list for the Lord of the Rings campaign, but also for the Crusades here. So one of them is the 4 GB patcher, which if you use any really Medieval 2 mods, they all say to use it. Basically allows the executable to use more memory. I'm not sure how necessary that really is in like a vanilla campaign like Crusades. I mean, it's mostly mods that tell you to do that, but I figure it couldn't hurt. In fact, I did it in my Medieval 2 Grand Campaign as the Kingdom of England, and I don't think it caused any problems, and who knows, maybe it saved us a crash or two. Again, who knows? We will also be using Reshade, and again, mostly just for a bit of sharpness, and I think Medieval 2 kind of needs it a little more than the remastered version does, so it'll be just a little bit heavier in the Crusades campaign than it is for Lord of the Rings. And by the way, the Reshade presets, you can find links for those in the description as well, though, again, it's very minor, just adding a bit of sharpness here, but if you want to see what exactly I chose and what exactly I did, then there you go, that's it. Now, a mod that well, I say it's a mod. I guess an external program or two that I'm actually very interested in right now, because I'm actually using 2 right now. One of them is called FreeCam, which, again, if you saw the Kingdom of England campaign, you know what that is. It's basically a almost like modernized version of the camera that you can use in Medieval 2, and you'll see it in action here shortly, or if you just jump to the first episode after this, you'll see it in action. And actually, I'm actually using a much more recent version of it too, because he's actually come out with a I don't know, revamped version since I played that campaign. So even now, it'll actually be different from what you saw it in the Kingdom of England campaign. But in either case, I highly recommend it. It gives you like some excellent, very modern feeling camera controls. Like not perfectly modern, but pretty darn close. So I highly recommend that. Again, links in the description. Not really a mod, an external program that kind of runs at the same time. And another program that kind of runs at the same time, but isn't really exactly a mod, it's called the Medieval 2 Engine Overhaul Project. And basically, there are a few mods that actually use this to basically extend the functionality of Medieval 2, give them some extra features, some extra capabilities that they don't have in the vanilla campaigns, if you will, or the vanilla engine, I guess, might be a better word for that. Like, they can do things in Medieval 2 that they wouldn't otherwise be able to due to, like, certain limitations imposed by, like, either the engine or just the feature set that's available. Now, you may be wondering, why bother doing that if you're just playing a vanilla, Crusades campaign? How is that going to help you? Well, there's a couple of things that, I guess, caught my attention as I was looking at the feature set on their website. First off, there's like a line here that says, fixed many engine bugs, crashes, and oversights. For example, crashes when using berserkers in battle. Now, I'm not sure if I would have come across any of these bugs or issues in the Crusades campaign. Like, to be honest, it doesn't really list everything that it did right there on the main page there. But I figure, again, trying to get my campaign to work as well as possible, and this seems like a good one to add. Another thing that I see here is it adds a tactical map viewer similar to the Rome Total War one. And we'll probably go over that very briefly in the first episode, because that might actually feature somewhat heavily in the campaign. But basically, if you played Rome 1 yourself or the remastered version, you'll know that on your settlements there was a button you could click on where you could then just view your settlement as if it was like during a siege, but without like any of the troops. You could just kind of wander around your settlement, just looking at the buildings and the walls and such. Basically, this overhaul gives you the ability to do that in Medieval 2. Except, I don't think it's limited to your own settlements. So, like, you can middle mouse click basically on, let's just say, like a random army that's standing out in the field, and you can see what the battlefield will look like where that army is standing. I think you can even middle click on like an enemy settlement, like just to get a sense of like what it looks like before you actually besiege it or attack it. I think you can even just do it to like a random piece of ground. Like you see like there's a bridge there, and you want to see like what does the battlefield look like without any army necessarily being there. I'm pretty sure you can just middle click on it and just look at what the battle map would look like, which that sounds kind of interesting. Yeah, I'm not going to lie, that actually sounds very interesting, and I'm not sure how much we're going to use it, but it sounded interesting enough that I just feel like I have to try it. Now, it also doesn't mention this, honestly, anywhere in the feature list, but I did notice that when you first start the game with this this improvement project running, basically it adds a D3, D9 file to your, basically your base folder. So I believe it is also, well, if you saw my 4th Age campaign, you'll know I used DG Voodoo to basically get the game to use a more recent version of DirectX rather than just, I believe it was DirectX 8. And I did that so that reshade would work, but I also did it so that I was just hoping that using a more recent version of DirectX or making it more compatible with a recent version of DirectX might help the game run a little better. Now, I believe that this overhaul project does the same thing for Medieval 2. Partially because of the existence of that D3, D9 file, but also because when I was setting up Reshade, I was basically able to get it to use a more recent version of DirectX. Like, I didn't select DirectX 9, I selected DirectX 10, 11, 12 in the reshade setup file. So hopefully that might also, again, if there was going to be any crashes, if there was going to be any bugs, again, I don't know if that would help, but I don't think it will hurt. And so I know I rambled on a bit, but basically I'm doing like a lot with this vanilla campaign, and I do still feel that it is a vanilla campaign, but I did feel I need to explain, like, because some will have like a couple of extra features or a couple of extra like things that might help us like not crash where perhaps otherwise we might have, or maybe we wouldn't have crashed anyways and all that was just a waste of time and I didn't need to do any of it. But anyway, that's all I really... Oh wait, no, there was one more thing with the mods. And this time it really is a change to the game's files and not an external program. But basically, when I did my Medieval 2 campaign as the Kingdom of England, I mentioned a diplomacy bug fix. It basically makes it so that the factions don't all hate you. And I do mean a fix, because apparently there was like a line in a text file that was supposed to be uncommented, but it was commented out. So factions basically hated you no matter what, even though they weren't supposed to. And basically, I've just fixed that, basically, just like I did in my Kingdom of England campaign. So it'll work the same way as it did there. All right, now, that is actually it for all of the mods on this. Again, I insist, it really is a vanilla Crusades campaign, despite those changes. Most of them are just like bug fixes and stuff. Well, actually, all of them are like bug fixes or something to try and prevent a crash. But anyway, that actually is the full explanation. So as I said earlier, both episodes should already be out for the Lord of the Rings campaign and the Crusades campaign. So if you want to watch one or both, you can already go ahead and get started. But in future weeks, basically it'll be Lord of the Rings on Monday, Crusades on Friday, with that Battles episode that I mentioned on Wednesdays. And once we're done with the Lord of the Rings series or the Crusades, I think the Crusades campaign will finish first, to be honest. But once we're done with one of the campaigns, we don't immediately start a second campaign again. What I do is I just then have 2 episodes of whichever campaign is left. So probably the Lord of the Rings campaign. And I'll have that on Mondays and Fridays until basically that campaign is over as well. And then we'll start 2 new campaigns, just like we did with the 4th Age campaign and the Alexander campaign, the Alexander Remastered campaign, which both were running at the same time, but we finished the Remastered campaign first, so then we had 2 4th Age episodes right up until that one was done, and now we're starting these 2, so it'll be the same. All right, but anyway, thank you for listening to me ramble on. If you are still here at the end, or if you finally gone, oh, I just want to see the battles, let me just skip ahead. Both those episodes are out. Go right ahead. But thank you very much for listening anyways, and I hope to see you or in the current campaigns.